Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 341, written by Cat Powers for Life, a glitch of Forky dimensions. June 2019. I move in with my boyfriend. I own 0 kitchen utensils. He has a cheap set and we use it. July 2020. My mom bought us a new set of silverware. It's a pretty fancy set, aka very solid and not the Dollar Tree set my boyfriend owned. We get rid of every fork, knife, and spoon we own. Approximately January 2021, an old fork appears. I do not understand how it had been hidden until now, but I like the fork because it's perfectly sized for me. From here on out, I get excited when this fork is clean. We don't use a lot of dishes and maybe use the dishwasher twice a week. Today, we empty the dishwasher. We have a sink full of dirty dishes, so it's not like we magically emptied our washer and pantry or something. There are now 2 old forks. I just don't have an explanation. I feel so fucked up over a damn fork. Bonus file, written by Free Cicada 502. If all of this madness happened to me, I would go crazy. I, 19 female, live in a small town in South Carolina. We only have a moderately large population because of the Air Force Base. I've lived here my whole life in the same house. It was built in 1971. My father bought it with his ex-wife, and my mom, his current wife, moved in 2001. I was born in 2002. I'll start at the beginning, but I will mention that I do have a rather fucked up memory, so I may be forgetting things. For as long as I've been alive, there have been footsteps in the attic. I always tried to rationalize it, just thinking that this is an old house. It's bound to make noise. But a couple of months ago, I heard bells jingling in the attic, like our Christmas decorations. It was above the bathroom, and the footsteps are usually above my room, which is right next door. I told my dad about it, and he went to check for animals. He didn't find any. Couldn't even find a place where they could have gotten in. He told me I was hearing things and I probably needed to go to bed. So I did. Then I started hearing what I can only describe as footsteps coming from inside the walls. My mom heard it too. So did our cats. At one point, it was behind our coffee maker and we were both standing there, scared that it was a mouse or something. Our cat, Katniss, was desperately trying to find it, but couldn't. My mom told my dad this time. An exterminator came out, but couldn't find anything. The noise persisted. Then I heard noises coming from the faucet in the bathtub. It sounded like someone was trying to force the faucet out of its place. I told my dad again, thinking there was a problem with the pipes. He found nothing. The footsteps and wall noises are continuous, but seem to get louder at night. I don't know if it's just because the house is quiet at night, so it sounds louder or what. I should mention that our attic is very short and hot. It's not possible for a grown person to stand upright. So no, we don't have someone living up there, and like I said, my dad checked and found nothing. Then it started messing with our dogs. We have 3 dogs. In order of age, we have Amber, Bouncy, and Zoe. We previously had Little Bit, who was older than all of them, but I'll get into what happened to her later. Whatever it is, loves to annoy Zoe. She's the most skittish. She's terrified of our cats and will literally move off the couch if one of the cats gets near her. They've never attacked her. She's just a scaredy cat. Zoe will often wake up and snap at something on our back, specifically when she's laying in the big dog bed that we have in the living room. She'll snap at it, lay back down, snap at it again and decide it's not worth it, and gets up to move. This doesn't happen to either of our other dogs or our cats when they lay there, only Zoe. There's nothing that could be touching her, and it's not fleas because she only does it when in that bed. The thing scared the fuck out of our oldest dog, Amber, twice. Amber and Zoe are the most needy, terrified of loud noises like thunder and fireworks, and Amber trails after my mom 24/7. I never saw this, but apparently something scared Amber to the point where she tried to sit behind my mom on the couch, and she's a big dog, golden retriever mix. She only does this with thunder and fireworks. None of our other dogs did this, just her, and she did it twice. No knocking on the door that she was laying in front of, which even if there was, she wouldn't be scared. Rather, she'd start barking her head off. The last thing it does to our dogs is the hardest to talk about. Bouncy is a Beagle mix and quite large. We call her Bounce because when she was a puppy, it always looked like she was jumping instead of running. Little Bit is a Chihuahua, Pug, Boston Terrier mix. Her name is obviously because she was quite small. My mom liked to say she was a little bit of dog. She was extremely sweet and motherly to our cat, Katniss. We found her under our house when she was 2 days old, and Little Bit helped with things like making sure she didn't fall and helping her go to the bathroom. Bounce is very neutral, doesn't scare easily, and doesn't really like to play. However, she has killed cats that have managed to get into our backyard, and unfortunately, those cats were strays we fed and came to love. Bounce and Little Bit started fighting, like trying to kill each other. The first time was the night before my first day of school. I can't remember what year it was, but it was like within the last 4 years. I remember I had a coconut hair mask on, and had just gotten out of the showers, so I wasn't dressed yet. Just in a towel, and all of a sudden I hear snarling and barking and my mom screaming her head off. I go in there and we have to physically pry them off each other. Little Bit was injured, but not bad enough to go to the vet, so we just separated them and they eventually got over it, but they still ended up fighting several more times. I've gotten injured before trying to stop them, although I know they didn't mean to hurt me. I remember one time my dad straight up picked up Little Bit and Bounce was attached to her throat and was also in the air. Eventually they stopped, though only until a couple of months ago. This was at 3 a.m. I remember very vividly because I was trying to sleep but was on my phone and my mom called me out of my room. And I was like, what could you possibly want? It's 3 a.m. and as far as you're concerned, I'm asleep right now. Her yell was urgent though, so I didn't even bother putting on my shorts. I just ran into the kitchen. She screamed that they were fighting again and she needed help. I ran out there with a flashlight, not even bothering to put my shoes or pants on, and had to pry them apart by myself because my mom didn't even move from the back porch. At one point, I even hit Bounce in the back with the flashlight because she just wouldn't stop and I couldn't separate them. I was screaming for my mom, and I'm surprised I didn't wake the neighbors with how much I was screaming. It's so fucking terrifying seeing two animals you love dearly trying to kill each other. Anyways, I eventually got them apart and held Little Bit back. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, earlier in the day, Bouncy had come inside with blood on her, but we didn't know what from. My mom called Bounce up to the porch and let her in the house, and Little Bit was just standing there, and when I tell you I've never seen her look like that, it looked like she had just reverted to, God, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like all the personality and sweetness just drained from her, and I was reminded that she's an animal. She looked so terrifying. I was a sobbing mess and was literally hyperventilating. I just sat there at the kitchen table with a washcloth, just sobbing and cleaning the blood and dirt off me. My mom woke up my dad and he had the audacity to be inconvenienced. I don't have the best parents, but that's another story. My mom decided that this was the last straw and one of them needed to go, so we ended up taking Little Bit to the SPCA. But don't worry, we know she was adopted and is fine now. But it came out of nowhere. I have a video from when Katniss was a kitten, and she was literally giving Bounce kisses on her face. I have no fucking clue what happened with them. This is so long. I'm sorry, but now I have to get into the actual, hardcore crap, if you will. The first experience I remember was actually with a friend. I think it was in middle school, so this would be around 4 to 7 years ago. So I was friends with this girl, Kaylee. She lived down the street, and she would often come over to my house after school and would sometimes stay for dinner before walking back home. That day was one of them. We had been in my bedroom that I shared with my older sister, Tori. Not sure where she was, but she wasn't in the room. My grandparents had this bench filled with toys that they needed to get rid of because we were older and no longer used it, so we were allowed to pick some stuff out and brought those things, along with the bench, home. One of the things I picked up was a Scooby-Doo stuffed animal. Apparently it was called the Friday Night Scooby Stuffed Animal. A flashlight was attached to his hand, and whenever you turned it on, there would be a ghost shadow on the light and he would say something like, "Cover my eyes, too scary," in his iconic Scooby-Doo voice. I can't remember all the phrases he said, but there was only a set number of them. I had it turned off with no batteries because it was purely just decoration. It had been sitting on the floor in front of my sister's bed, which is on the other side of the room from the door. Me and Kaylee were called for dinner, so I let her walk out of the room first before turning off the lights. And I kid you not, this thing goes, "Turn back on the lights, too scary," at the exact same time. Me and Kaylee run out of the room. I didn't even shut the door, and we're screaming about how it just talked without batteries in it. My parents don't believe me, of course. So we ate, Kaylee went home, and I ripped the wires out of that thing and threw it away. Before anyone asks, no, my grandparents' house is not haunted. I went over there pretty much every weekend and never experienced anything, so nothing was attached to the bench or the stuffed animal. Also, none of the toys my sister brought back ever did anything, just my Scooby-Doo toy. Okay, so I have like 2 more stories, so bear with me. So my sister moved out when I was 11. I'm 19 now, so I have our room to myself. It's weirdly shaped. Basically, it's a box, but they didn't finish one wall, so there's a little bump out area. For the longest, my bed was in that little nook. We had bunk beds that were in that nook. Then we had custom built beds by my dad that were like loft beds, and mine was in that corner. Now I have a proper bed that's too big for it now. I have a desk there with all my makeup. The bedroom door is like next to the wall that the desk is on, if that makes sense. So the door is like across from my desk, through my closet. I'm explaining this horribly. My point is that I can't see my bedroom door from my desk, even if I was facing the center of my room. So I was sitting there doing my makeup when I see this black figure out of the corner of my eye. I immediately jump, thinking that my mom had snuck into my room without me noticing. But my door is squeaky as fuck. I almost always hear it. So I turn around, lean around the corner, and the door is closed. No one is in my room. I'm looking around like, okay, what the hell did I see? As I'm looking around, I see a black hand coming from my wall on the floor directly in front of the door. I had a piece of paper on the floor, so I figured that it just blew up and I just saw the shadow. So I went back to doing my makeup. I took some pictures, took it off and sat back down on my bed, which is across from my desk in the corner of my room. Then I noticed the paper is too far away from where I saw the hand. It is possible that the paper moved in the time I was at my desk, but that doesn't explain what I saw standing in the middle of my room. Now for the latest thing. I have a weird sleeping schedule right now. I'm unemployed and not going to school. I graduated in 2020. I woke up yesterday around maybe like 2 a.m. Anyways, my dad left for work at 4 a.m. like always, and my mom went to bed around 3 a.m. So I have the whole house to myself. I got up and heated up some leftovers. I got something out of one of the cabinets, but left it open because I knew I had to put the thing back, so what's the point? Mind you, our house is old, like 50 years old. Everything squeaks, even the cabinets. So I'm standing at the microwave, ironically it's right next to the coffee machine, and I turn around to put it back, and the freaking cabinet is shut. Now I know I have a bad memory, but I wouldn't have shut it. I don't shut cabinets unless they're low to the ground where my cats can get in there. So how did it close? I should have heard it. It's a very squeaky door. I literally have to open it a certain way when my mom is asleep because I don't want to be too loud. So I just ignore it and go to my room. While I'm eating, my mom screams for me and sounds absolutely terrified. I thought she got mad at me because I accidentally woke her up. I just yelled, "What?" Pause real quick because something just happened while I was writing this. I heard noises and my mom yelling, so I just left my room and my mom said something in the bathroom scared our younger cat, Ivy, and she came running out of the bathroom. So that's great. I hate that bathroom. Crap always happens in there. Anyways, back to this morning. She yells for me and I just yell back, "What?" She doesn't respond, so I'm like, oh great, she's pissed. I open my door and just see my mom sitting up in her bed, and I'm like, yo, what the fuck? She says she heard a female voice and it sounded like it was at the foot of her bed. I'm like, great, someone broke into our house? I go into her room and shut the door, leaving a crack open. I grab her phone and ask if we should call the police, but she says no, so I decided to check the house. I knew I had let the dogs out earlier, but was certain I locked the doors after getting them back in. I turned on the flashlight on her phone and walked around, checking the front and back door, and they were both locked. I didn't bother checking the windows because our house is pretty impossible to break in. I knew no one was in our house. She's still sobbing when I get back to her room. She said that it was feminine, but it didn't sound like words, just mumbling. 2 syllables. All of my family members have 2-syllable word names, so it might have been a name. I asked her about sleep paralysis, and she said that she could move, but the voice sounded so clear. I told her about the cabinet because I remembered it, and it happened literally less than an hour before she woke up, and she didn't even say anything about it. She didn't go back to bed until my dad got home around 2 p.m. Bounce and Zoe were laying on the floor in front of her bed and didn't react to anything. Amber was laying next to my mom and was literally trying to sleep while I was in there talking to my mom. Katniss and Ivy were laying on the couch in the living room, and none of them reacted. I don't know if she saw anything. There may have been something there, but my mom is pretty blind without her glasses. She has bifocals and was also dark. But this is really starting to freak me out. My cats will just sit and stare at a corner of the living room that just so happens to connect to my mom's room. I thought for the longest time that it was the old man next door. The shadow person that I saw didn't feel feminine, but it also didn't feel threatening. I've woken up with bruises in random spots, and while I do move around a lot in my sleep, my mom would hear it if I hit a wall. I have no fucking clue what to do. This, along with a lot of stuff that happened with Kaylee in the forest that surrounds our neighborhood, is really getting to me. I don't even wholly believe in this, but what else could it be? How do you imagine a sound? We're not even close to being religious. I'm not really looking for tips, I just needed to share this with someone who will believe me. When I told my parents about the shadow person, they straight up laughed at me, so I can't even imagine what my dad will say to my mom. I saw her sobbing. She looked so scared. She called me because she thought someone might be in our house, like that's how sure she is that she heard it. I'm honestly so sick of this house. I just want to leave it in this town. There's a lot more that I didn't mention, like all the stuff that happened in our bathroom, and some other stuff that's happened in my mom's room. Oh, and if you were wondering, the place where our dogs fought outside is right in front of that fucking forest. Something is in those woods, and it's terrifying.